Well, good morning. Today we're going to be talking about when you take a new listing, what's the launch process? We're talking about how to stop people from getting in your heads, talking about mega open houses, community events, and probably a lot more, all in 30 minutes time, because we have an amazing icon agent here today. We're basically interviewing a woman named Laura Rose at a Huntington Beach, California. Laura, what's going on?
Morning.
That was it. That was your intro. Then, by the way, as you can see, she just does
That was a great intro.
but she just does her thing. Like she's like, you'll watch. As she has such a straightforward. This is the second time we get to dive deep with Laura. She's going to unpack these things that she does as an agent to sell homes at a really high level in Huntington Beach, down in Southern California. But you're just so matter of fact about the way you do it, Laura. Like you just do your thing. You just go and create this great business. It's amazing.
Just do the thing.
Just do the thing. So I think whether people have heard the last time you were on here or not, I think we should dive in maybe with the new listing launch process first, and then kind of back that into community events and mega houses. Or which order do you want to start in today?
Oh, you're the interviewer, so
Wow,
I'll
cool.
I'll go with whatever you want to go with. I'm going to turn my volume up over here a little bit.
All right, cool. So for those of you listening, give you a little background. Laura has a farm that she's been working. She generates what percentage of your business would you say either directly in the farm or repeat referrals from people inside that farm?
99%.
99% of her business. And
Yeah, it scares my business coach.
Hey, it's working for you, right? I'm not here to coach. I'm only here to get the best nuggets. And you consciously set out to create a place where you did business with people you didn't know. Like this was a strategic approach. All right. I imagine part of what you do, because you referenced it last time, and I would love to take a little time and go deeper on it. When you take a new listing, you told me you have this launch process. What is that? Can you walk me through what that is?
So, when I'm sitting down with a seller and a seller's like, when can we have our house on the market? I want 2 weeks. And they're kind of like, and then I have to explain to them, the reason that they're hiring me is because of the results that I get. And those results are got via following a process of launching a listing. So for me, majority of my work when I'm getting a listing to sell, not even quickly, just to sell, all the work is in the preparation. And I think that that's one of the things that a lot of agents miss. I think that they don't spend the time with their clients to prepare the property and prepare their marketing for success, really, right? It's like, isn't there some kind of a quote about like proper preparation prevents poor performance? Something like or is that just like stuck in my head?
No, I think it's a quote, but I'm going to credit it to you. So
but anyway, so like I just really think that everything needs to be prepared properly, and whether or not I have an occupied seller that we're doing occupied staging or a vacant home that we're doing vacant staging on, that's part of it. So like part of the launch process starts in preparing the home, getting it ready for people to see it for prime time, and treating the property like a product, because it is a product at that point, and that's where my background in marketing comes in handy, because it also helps to like detach your sellers from the property. Working with them that way, because then they kind of detach emotionally and they're able to, but by the time we have offers, they're really able to be objective. And that's very helpful. But then, it's preparing the property. Every property goes through the same process of, cleaning, outdoor washing, window washing. And these things are things that, a lot of agents are doing. Some of them might be skipping. You shouldn't skip them. And then actually getting it on it. The properties have a 1 day or sometimes a day and a half photo shoot, just depending on the property, depending on the availability of the photographers and videographers that I use. We always are doing just listed invitations to our launch open house. And our launch open house is a mega open house. And we try to do 3 days. Sometimes that's not always appropriate or available for a property. So then we do at least 2 days. But then in those days, we're bringing in special vendors. And I encourage the neighbors to come. I really do. It doesn't matter where the listing is. I encourage the neighbors to come. So does that help? That's part of it.
All of that helps.
Version.
All of it helps. And I'm taking notes because I'm going to go back and ask you questions on each part of this. So this is what I wanted today was the specifics and the details for people that's like, you do a new listing launch process. Great. People are like, but what is that? So you're giving us exactly what I'm looking for. All right. It starts 2 weeks before, starts with preparing the home, getting people ready to see it, treating the property almost like a commodity. You said, let's start right there. Do you ever have trouble getting the seller on board with the idea of going through this much effort? Because is it hands off for the seller? Are you taking over everything, or like, are they involved in this preparation process?
Well, obviously if they're living in the property, and I will say, I am not the agent for everybody. That's one of the things that I think that we all have to like recognize is that like how we work is not going to work for every single person out there. And that's okay. And I have run into people that, kind of don't want to do the thing, they just want the pictures, just throw it on the MLS. And, and for me, that's kind of a reflection of who I am and how my future clients are going to see what my work product is. And so I'm not really interested in somebody that's not interested in, presenting a really great product to the world. That's just a bad idea. And I'm very upfront with people about it. Like I will just tell them, I'm not going to take an overpriced listing. Why am I going to not going to take an overpriced listing? Because I want to be friends at the end of the process. My goal is to be your realtor for life. My goal is not for you to hate me at the end of the process because you feel like I lied to you. Even though I probably didn't, it was probably your list price.
I love that. You want to be friends. Do you tell this are these things, by the way, this sounds like things you might have said to actual
100%. Absolutely.
I want to be friends with you at the end of this process, right?
Yeah, exactly. I don't want you to hate me. My goal is not to be in an adversarial position. My goal is not to be in an adversarial position with another agent that I'm in a transaction with.
Yes.
Doesn't mean that doesn't always happen, right?
Of course. And we'll come back to that. That's a good. All right. So it sounds like you're almost enrolling the sellers in the idea of like, we are together going to create this product that's going to help you maximize your price.
Starts from the very moment that I start communicating with them, when they start, asking me how to prepare their home for sale.
Yeah.
What are things that we can do to set ourselves up for success? Now, what I have learned is to not overload them in the interview with that stuff, because that is a fail point. If you overload people in the interview with your suggestions and your expertise, then the person that makes it feel easier is the person that they're going to hire.
So question on that. That's really interesting. So do you have to come back for a second meeting after they sign the contract, or as soon as you're signed?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I will not do it at the same meeting. It's too much stuff. It's kind of like going wine tasting. Like, have you ever gone wine tasting?
Sure.
And so like how many wineries can you do? Like by the third one, you're sort of on the border of not having a clue what you're drinking.
I love that, Laura. That's so good. The good metaphor. All right. So do you always come back in person, or do you ever do it on the phone or Zoom, or is it like a second, like you said?
I always come back in person. Remember, these people are paying us a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. So who pays for, speaking of paying a lot of money, the cleaning, outdoor washing, window washing? Who pays for all that?
I mean, at my price point, I'm paying for it.
Okay.
But
you factor it into you factor that into your commission you charge and the price point. Laura, what's your average sale price?
My average sale price, I think, is 1.2.
Okay. So good price point where the cost of cleaning, outdoor washing, window washing is minimal compared to the total commission you're earning.
Because the other thing that I also recognize is that, like, oftentimes as agents, like, we know what needs to happen, right? Like, we know what needs to happen to a property, because how many times have we toured a property with a buyer, or we've sat in open house and we've listened to the conversations of the buyers that are in there. So you do that year after year, and you get a collective of like what people want to see. So like the first thing that our job is to do is to take away the objectives, right? So like, if the house has a bad smell, we need to take away the bad smell. If the house is like, not inviting because like, somebody left the towels on the floor, like pick the towels up. Like, I mean, that's just a, sample, but we know what people want to see when they walk in houses. They've all been trained. We've been conditioned by HGTV. And that's not the reality for majority of our sales. Like we can't, it's not going to be, whatever the Gaines people, Magnolia, which ones I'm talking about. Like that's not the reality of most of the houses that we're selling, but you get the gist. You get what people are expecting when they walk in, like, beds made, dishes done, things not to smell, like be able to see out the windows. I always, and some of those things also, especially for like an occupied listing, like those are nice little like things for them to help them out. It gives them a baseline. That's the other thing that I'll tell people is like photo day is like, that's our goal. Like if we get to, especially in an occupied property, like and I'll even give them the photos. I'll be like, hey, use the photos as reference point, because I will tell people like, don't just turn your microwave on, or your oven on. Like I may have hidden things during the photo shoot.
That's just sticking stuff anywhere. So and even and we'll move on for this point in a minute, but I'm now just curious because I'm getting into details. Do you ever go so far as like when you said our goal is to remove the objections of the buyers, light rehab, painting, touch up? Like is it that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes I pay for it because if they don't have the ability to pay for it, and it's something that I'm really, we're never covering up something that's damaged, but sometimes people will like fix things and then they don't finish them. Like as an example, in my own house, in my office right now, I have an old stain on my ceiling from where my roof leaked like 2 years ago. And I fixed it, obviously. Otherwise, my ceiling would be caving in right now. But there is like a little bit of the stain left over. If I were selling my house, I would fix that. I would finish that repair. It's like finish those repairs. Or is there like a really offensive color? Or is there just too much color? Like we want to neutralize and make things appealing to the widest variety of people.
Yeah, I love that. All right, so the buildup is all for like the photo is the goal. We don't have to get too into details on the photos, but is there anything specific? I'm sure you work with some photographers you love. Is there anything specific that you do on photo day that you think is unique to you, or pretty much like we just take amazing photos?
Yeah, we just take amazing photos. We take a lot of photos. I try to be there. I try to get some, there's certainly like my templates for how I'm using the photos. I need things, so I'm like, okay, make sure I get vertical shots, make sure I get wide shots. Like,
my question. Can I ask you that quick? Can I interrupt? Because that's the question.
Yeah.
A lot of agents I find don't know what to do when they're with the photographer. Like, why would I even, like, I'm just standing there watching the photographer take photos. You said I need to be there. What do you do when you're there with the photographer that you think makes it go better?
I'm asking them, what do they think about how the space is set up? I'm also a stager, so I'm staging my own listings. And so a lot of times I'm kind of like, what do you think about that? Like, how does that look? Do you want me to change something? And sometimes things get moved, and that's okay because they're seeing the space through a camera lens. And then also like just over the years, I've learned that there are certain camera angles that I really like, that I think you see the space a certain way and you want that reflected in your photos.
Yeah, I love it. And you said you want some vertical, some horizontal. Why the mix depending on which? Just
because of how my print material works and my templates. So everything is templated out. So my, just listed, just sold postcards, my brochure, my property brochures, or I use a folded template. So it's feels a little bit more luxurious. And so then I it has more opportunity for pictures. So then I want some small detail shots that I can use as like accents behind, things. It's more so than just like your standard, 1990s property flyer with a single property flyer and, some gigantic price reduced.
Right. I'm struck by the way, and I know you're pretty well at this point, Laura, but I'm struck by how detail oriented you are and like how it serves you in creating something for your clients. And if you're listening to this, by the way, and you're not a detail oriented agent, hopefully like you can just take notes of this, or you have someone in your back office that can help get you organized like this, right? Or if you're listening to Laura like me and you're like, oh man, I'm not nearly as good as I thought I was. This is so good, Laura. Like this, I'm taking notes on stuff I should do too. So thank you.
Well, good. Yeah. Trying not to give away the secret sauce.
Well, you're giving plenty of good stuff. This is fantastic. So we do the photo shoot. We're just listed. We're doing invitations to the neighbors to launch this mega open house. You said it's a 3-day mega open house. Tell me more about that.
So in my ideal world, the 3-day open house starts with a twilight open house that is advertised as a neighbor mixer. Why is it advertised as a neighbor mixer? Well, it's number one, it's the first day, and it's public too, right? Like, so it's public. So, you know, serious buyers are welcome to come. Agents are welcome to come with their clients or as a preview. And the reason that I like that is because most of the sellers are going to want to go through a marketing period, even as short as a single weekend marketing period. But you also have to set them up for like, what if we have a longer? Like the goal is like, obviously, like, let's sell it. Like now I've made you do all this work to prepare your house. And so now you're like all pumped and ready. And like we put the house on the market. So you want the market to respond. But that doesn't always happen. So we do kind of like a set expectations of, you know, like, well, what if we're on the market more than a weekend? But that first weekend is like, hey, you have my full attention the first weekend. And so that's me. That's the people that help me do these things. And I like the 3-day because it also gives the neighbors sort of like a preview, because they're more likely to come over on a Friday or a Thursday night and then see something and then be so excited about it that they call their cousin who's been talking about buying a house. And then the cousin now has Saturday and Sunday to figure out how to get over there, or call their agent, or call me, or whatever. And so that's where that like beauty of the 3-day comes in. It's not always possible, but you know, like it's great when it happens. And then Saturday and Sunday is a repeat. And then also just like having things for people to interact with, you know, like having vendors, having food, having walk away, like little swag bags, things like that. Those are all things that help, you know, again, it's the winery thing, right? It's like, oh, what are they going to remember? Like, what about these buyers that have seen 7 houses in a day? Well, how are we going to stand out where they're going to be like, oh yeah, what about that one house that had the thing? There you go.
I love it. I mean, it's a feeling you're creating in the buyer, but it's also, if you go back to the beginning, you have 99% of your business being done in your farm or by referrals from it. Everything you're doing is part of the brand and image you're putting forward of the professionalism that you working with you as an agent creates, correct?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So who are the vendors? You said you mentioned vendors you bring in. What do you mean by vendors?
I guess some people could consider them like caterers or whatever, but you know, it depends. It depends on who it is. Again,
but
like
food. You're talking food.
Talking food, drink, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. Like you name it. I mean, we live in a food truck world. Anything you could possibly think of, you could find someone that has a mobile version of that.
Yeah.
And
all this you're paying for, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And again,
people are paying us a lot. People are paying us a lot of money. The idea that we're not spending a significant portion of what we're getting paid to market their homes is nonsense. And it makes me sad about our industry.
Do you ever worry as the market, especially now, if I don't know if your area of the market's slowing down or not, some areas it is, some areas it's not. Do you ever worry about fronting all this upfront money, or have you priced it well, like knowing that like this house is going to sell? So that's why
again, I don't take overpriced listings. I don't take listings where people aren't serious about selling. Sure, things happen and not everything sells. Absolutely. But if you are just out there trying to take any listing that you can to stick your sign in a yard, then this may not be the strategy for you. But I also think that I have a different mindset than a lot of people. I'm coming from a place of abundance rather than coming from a place of scarcity. So I'm not concerned. You got to spend money and make money sometimes. And that's true for us, and it's true for our clients.
I love it. I love your mindset, Laura. This is so cool. All right. So we had the mega open houses. I don't know if there's anything else that you want to add on that, but I'd love to find out how that also ties into you also said you do a lot of community events. These are separate from community events, correct? Like this is all
yeah, totally. Yeah, no, this is just straight transaction marketing.
Okay. We have about 10 minutes left. Do we have time? Do you want to talk about community events, or do you want to just keep? Is there more stuff on the mega open house and the launch process?
I think it's pretty obvious. Okay. Cool. I mean, and then there's this powerful thing called Google. So
Cool. So tell me then in community events, like how does that tie into all this? Because you're doing these mega open houses, which in your farm that's almost like an event, and then you're throwing on top of that the community events. What are you doing for the community?
So I just counted. I'm doing 20 community events in my farm.
Say what?
Per year.
20? Yeah. All right. Well, now I'm very curious. Walk us through this. What are these large scale, small scale? Are you organizing?
They're both. They're primarily small scale, actually. They're little pop-ups. So I think like the big thing for me is just like building community. So it's like it is that word community is like at the heart of my business. And it is something that I'm really committed to is building community. So it's not all about do an action, get a transaction. And I think that is something that can be lost for a lot of people. And I think that it's kind of like if you join a volunteer group or unless you're joining like a straight up business networking group, but a lot of people will join volunteer things hoping that they'll network with people and get business. And you've heard it. That is a horrible reason to start volunteering. Like it is a horrible reason. So starting to care about your community and like doing community events for the sole purpose of getting in front of buyers and sellers and get a transaction is a horrible, you will hate what you're doing. You will not want to, get up early, stay up late, do the organization, spend the money, all that stuff, because there isn't a direct correlation. But if you really care about getting to know your community or getting deeper with the people that like people in your sphere of influence, the people that you're going to invite to these things, community events are hands down the best way to do it.
I love that.
If you like it.
And I can tell you do. So give us a couple examples of things like some of these 20. I'm just curious what's on the.
So also I built over the years. I started with one, and then I did that one consistently and kind of perfected it. And then I like added another one and then added another one. So it's not like I showed up. And every year I'm adding something. So like even right now in my head, I'm kind of like, can I do that thing I've been talking about to myself in the shower for like 3 years? Can that happen in 2025?
What's the one you want to add? What's the one you're thinking of adding?
I want to do a car show in my neighborhood because when I I grew up as a car person. So like I grew up with my dad who was always working on cars. He always had vintage cars. And, I was just and we always would go to car shows, and like my husband has had like a bazillion different cars, and, we go to car shows. And so, and then I'm out walking in the neighborhood constantly, and I see all the cool cars that are in people's garages. And I just think it would be cool to have like a cool car show.
I love that.
And just get the people out of their garages. I even asked my husband, I was like, would you bring your car over? And he was like, yeah, I'd bring my car over. Like just do. My farm has a parking lot and a school and a park like right in the center of it. So it would be like doing it. It would be doing it there.
So when you're talking about these 20 events, I mean, literally you are highly entrenched in the community. Like you're doing, like you said, you're doing it for the community to get people engaged and like.
Yeah, I love seeing people get together with their neighbors and friends. I think that it creates, I think that people are better neighbors. I think that people have more pride of ownership. I think that they are things that I can promote at my open houses to buyers that are unfamiliar with the area, which then in turn, make people want to buy in the neighborhood more so than somebody else's neighborhood. This was all born out of like, what would I want to see in a neighborhood that I live in? And here I am in this very unique position as a realtor to be able to do something like this that isn't weird, right? Like, because most of people are like, oh yeah, Laura's doing that because, she's, getting business. People that know me know that like I do not have to do any of this in order to get business. Because there's a lot of realtors out there that are extremely successful that have never hosted an event a day in their life.
Right.
And they don't need to. And I don't think that they should, because if it's not something that you're passionate about, then you shouldn't do it.
And that's a really important thing, the authenticity piece to it. It sounds like from a lot of the things you're doing.
I think so. Yeah, I think that that's really, really important, And there are people that do it, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I watch them, and like, I've got my heroes, that I'm kind of like, oh, that's really cool.
I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. We only have a couple minutes, and I'd love for you to give just a few minutes. We're going to change gears just to the end. By the way, if anybody wants to get a hold of Laura, she's Laura Rose on every social platform, right?
Laura Rose Homes.
Laura Rose Homes. Laura Rose Homes, Huntington Beach, California. If you want to go deeper on these community events, if you're doing events, you want to share ideas with Laura.
Totally.
But you made a comment last time that I'd love to just wrap up with. You talked about the importance of keeping people out of your head. I think you were talking about other agents, but I don't know if you're talking about people in the community. Like, who do you want to keep out of your head, and how do you do that?
So, it's been a struggle. I'll be honest. It's something that you're always learning about. I do kind of like go back to something that my dad told me. He was like, he would say things like, and I'm not going to quote him, right? But essentially it was like, don't give people free rent in your head. Like if they're not like, if someone isn't, helping you, then like, why are you going to give them space in your head? And that's like, no free rent kind of was like the mantra. And that is harder to do when you're in sales, and especially when you're in, I think, like something as personal as real estate sales, because we're out there doing one-to-one marketing, and we are trying to get people to like pick me. It's like, pick me. So then we put ourselves in these positions of being essentially a popularity contest. And that can really kind of like take you back to junior high. And you can really get stuck there. And I think that it just takes a long time to recognize that. And then once you recognize that, you can just be like, I'm not going to subscribe to that anymore. So it's kind of like putting blinders on and really just like, if you have a crazy idea, do it. I have done community events where I have looked around at my immediate family that always show up for me, and I have been like, this might be the most expensive blank that I've ever done. This might be the most expensive private party for us that I've ever done. And wondering if people, because I do community events with no RSVP required. And that is something that can be extremely nerve-wracking. I know that a lot of agents that are going to start doing community events, that is what a true community event is. A private event is something where people RSVP, but a community event is something where like you don't know who's going to show up. And so that's so then doing that and just being like, I don't care, I'm doing this. Like, you can feel it in your gut when you know it's the right thing to do.
I love that, Laura. All right, we're at the bottom of the hour. If I know we don't have any other Agent Power Huddle scheduled with you, but if you want to come on again, this is great. Like, you have so much stuff to give, and we can go deeper on community events.
I'll come on again. I like it.
All right, cool. I would love to talk more on community events. We can figure out how to break down some of these you don't have to give all the secret sauce, but like of these 20, what are some of the ones that have worked better over the years? What are the ones you want that people could start with? What are ones that are more advanced that you're like, do this one later on once you kind of get deep in your community? I would love to do that on another Agent Power Huddle with you. So
yeah, absolutely. That'd be great.
This is fun. Gian did drop into the chat, and you can put this with the show notes, Gian, your Instagram, Laura Rose Holmes. So if anybody wants it, it'll be posted with the show notes on this podcast also.
Yeah.
Laura, this is wonderful. Thank you for being here this morning.
Well, thank you. Good way to start the day.
So fun. All right. Have a great day, buddy. Bye, guys.
If you'd like more information or to get connected to the Agent Power Huddle, join our free Facebook group. This call was designed for the agents in our EXP organization, but open to any agent from any brokerage. If you're a guest and you're interested in learning more about EXP or our specific resources within the Agent Collective, reach out to the person who invited you to this call to get more info. Produced by the Agent Collective Media Network.